Same day, same shirt. Hi again. Okay, this will be my final dyeing tutorial for a while, but I had promised that I would get these done this month, and I like to keep my word. So on this video, I'm going to be trying to duplicate the dyeing technique that I did on this piece that I stitched in Stitch Mania called Not Forgotten. It's a design by Paula Stewart. It was in the Just Cross Stitch Halloween issue of 2012. But what I forgot, and I wondered why I had 2 photocopies of it, was that it was on the cover photo, I believe, or it was the photograph was in the magazine, but they had actually forgotten to put the pattern in the magazine. So you could go to their website and they have the pattern on their website. It just got left out when it was printed. So I used 18 count Aida for this. I used pearl gray Rit dye as well as tan Rit dye. And today I will be attempting, like I said, to duplicate this, and I'm going to use a piece of 18 count Aida, which I've already gotten wet, and a piece of 25 count linen. And I'm going to do them side by side, try to do the exact same thing to each one, just to see the comparison of how one fabric dyes to the next. I will also be dyeing a piece of fabric with the walnut ink crystals. But let's get started on the Rit dye first. Let me set my camera up and I will be right back. Okay, so if this is my first dyeing tutorial that you have watched, I will just briefly go over what I do, some of the things that you need. If you don't want to get your hands all stained, you want to have a pair of plastic gloves. I have coated my surface with several layers of newsprint, and on top of that I have put wax paper with the waxy side up, simply because my fabric is too large to go onto any cookie sheet that I have, where I would put baking paper or normal wax paper. So I'm going to be laying my fabric directly on the table, and that's why I chose to use, actually this is freezer paper, sorry, this is freezer paper with the wax side up. Okay, because if you lay it directly onto newsprint or an old towel, the dye will wick into, out of your fabric into what is underneath, and we don't want that. We want to keep as much of the dye in the linen or the Aida as possible. That's why we want a non-porous surface to do it on. You could probably also use like a garbage bag, any type of plastic sheeting, that would work as well. You want to have on clothing that you don't mind getting dye on, because accidents happen. Okay, and I think that's it as far as area preparation. So what I have here is 10 ounces of relatively warm water. I put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes, and then 2 ounces of warm water. And to that, I'm going to add my Rit dye. Again, for this particular fabric, I will be using pearl gray, and then one that is just called tan, and I no longer have the box for that, but this is my little container of it. Okay? So, first things, you also might want to have just an old cloth around that you can wipe your hands on or wipe up any spills in the event that those happen. All right. Before I put my gloves on, though, I'm going to open this container. Whoa, see? Right there, spill. and I want to get that up off the table. I normally open them over my tray so that I don't have to deal with this, but let's see if I can get the majority of it in here. All right, so I'm to the 10 ounces of water. I'm going to add a heaping eighth, a fourth, okay, so probably a half of a teaspoon of that. And to the 2 ounces, I want it a bit more concentrated, so I'm going to add, for right now, a quarter of a teaspoon to that. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of salt, maybe a teaspoon, and maybe a half a teaspoon. Sorry, it's not more precise than that. And you want to stir. And like I've mentioned in my other video, you want to make sure that all of your dye crystals are dissolved. If you don't get it dissolved, if you don't get it completely dissolved, you will have multicolored specks on your fabric. And if that's the look you're going for, great. But in this case, I don't necessarily want any of those specks on the fabric. So you stir and you stir and you stir. And then you stir some more. If for some reason you think that your dye bath is too dark, you can always add more water to dilute it down. Or if you think it's too light, just add more dye. Always making sure to stir thoroughly after you add the dye. Okay, let's let that sit for a moment, and we're going to stir this one. And I think this container has a ridge on the bottom of the dye crystals have settled in, so you want to make sure if your container has a ridge on the bottom to get in there and get that nice and dissolved. I think I might add another 1/8 of a teaspoon to this one. Okay, and I'm just going to close that up before I spill. Because I am putting my fabric directly onto this surface, I don't want any crystals, and a few have escaped again somehow. I don't want any crystals on there because, again, that will cause the multicolored specks. It might be red, it could be brown, whatever colors they use to make up the pearl gray. Okay, so I hope that that is stirred completely. We'll go back to this one. We're going to set the small one aside for now. We'll set the spoon aside for now. trying to make space here. Okay, I just purchase inexpensive things either from thrift stores or from the dollar store to dye my pieces in. I don't want to be spending a lot of money on utensils. I would rather save that money and spend it on patterns and fabric and fibers. Okay, so we can set that aside for now. We have our pearl gray here, and I should have set a timer. Can't set a timer. We may be able to do both pieces, but the linen and the aida, that's what I'll do. I'll put both pieces in at one time. Again, I have wet these thoroughly, and I'm just going to kind of squish them up and put them in. And then I'll take, that's not gonna work. I'm just gonna work them around in here. Squeeze the excess dye out and lay it aside. And now we'll do the same to the aida. And lay that aside. Okay, I think we are finished with that for now. Put the lid on. Put that aside. I'm going to open up each piece of fabric out on the table. Need to move this. Need a bigger table. And we have the aida. So right now they look pretty similar, if you can see that. I think they look, I'm using fabric from my stash, and neither piece had a salvage. Oh, this one does. Okay, so this is not Zweigart. I don't know what brand these are, unfortunately, but you can see how when you wad your fabric up and put it down into the dye bath, that's what gives you all the mottled, or some of the mottled look. Okay, you know what? Look, I can see a little red dot right there and there. So clearly I did not have it stirred up all the way, but hopefully those are near the edge, and that will not affect the stitch design. Okay, so from here what I did was to, running out of room here, I took my more concentrated jar of pearl gray, and I used a paper towel. Today I'm going to just try this sponge brush, and I just started going over Okay, I don't think that's concentrated enough. I want it more concentrated. So, I don't want to do it on top of this. Okay, let me go. I don't want to open my dye, my powdered dye on top of this because I don't want any crystals to get on this. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to add another quarter of a teaspoon to this. I'll mix it up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I have added more dye crystals to my little container. I hope that I have it stirred enough. And my goal is to take and just dab, and it's still pretty weak, but we'll see. Just dab around all, you know, in random spots, the darker pearl gray. I think when I did this originally, I used a paper towel to add the random spots, but whatever works. Okay, normally, well, what I did the last time is that I just let this air dry, but for the sake of the video, let me see if I can do a little bit of drying with my heat gun to speed things up a little bit, because the fabric is pretty saturated and I could be here all night trying to get this to dry and do the video. So let me just show you, if you, a hair dryer might even work well. You could, if you had something large enough, you know, a pan large enough to go into the oven, this is definitely one that you could oven dry on a very low temperature, maybe 150 or 200, checking it every few minutes. If it were nice outside, you could put it outside to dry, but today I'm just gonna use the heat gun and try to speed it along some. So this is how I use my heat gun to dry the fabric. You want to keep it moving, and you will be able to see already, I can see already that it lightens up as it dries. Now, because we have a wax coated paper underneath, you do want to keep your heat gun moving. You don't want to melt the wax because that will change, it will get on your fabric and change the whole makeup of the dyeing process. Okay, so let's give the Aida over here some love. I think the Aida is dyeing a bit darker. Just from what I can tell right now. Looks quite polka dotted right now. I don't know. I wonder what would happen if I put it in the microwave. I know Trisha at 3 Owl Threads wrapped it up in hers up in saran wrap and zapped it in the microwave for a little bit. Did that help dry it? I don't know. Or if it just helped to heat set it. Okay, so let me try to get this dry so that we can go on to the next step, and I will be back. All right, so I have the pearl gray fabric set aside drying, and while that's happening, I thought we could go ahead and work on our walnut ink crystal dyeing. And for this, I will be using a 36 count white Edinburgh linen, and I have 8 ounces of water here that I have warmed up in the microwave, not quite to boiling, but nice and hot, so that the walnut ink will dissolve easily. And if I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but if this is the only dyeing video of mine that you have watched, I only use utensils that I'm not going to be preparing food with. So this measuring cup, the only thing I use it for is for dyeing. I use disposable spoons, so there's no chance of me grabbing the wrong spoon to mix dyes, because I don't want any of the chemicals, especially from the RIT dye, to leach into the plastic and possibly get into my food. Obviously, if your coffee's staining, well, it's coffee. You know, if it leaches into a container, that's not so bad. But I just have completely separate containers and utensils that I use strictly for dyeing. Okay, so I have the walnut crystals here. This is what they look like. And to the 8 ounces of water, I think what we'll start off with, again, I'm using my little 1/8 of a teaspoon. See, with just an 1/8 of a teaspoon, look how dark it is. Okay, I think I will, for this, just to see what happens, I will give it another heaping 1/8 of a teaspoon. We can always add more if we don't like how dark it is. And you want to go ahead and mix that well. Now, just so you know, this type of dyeing is not for the faint of heart. If you're not into prim, this is not going to be for you, because this definitely will be on the primitive side. So, fair warning there, guys. Okay, I have, like I said, I've covered my surface. I again have a piece of freezer paper. I would normally use parchment paper or baking paper, but when I got ready to get that out, there was only a teeny tiny sheet left on the roll, so this will have to do. For this technique, you can either wet your piece of fabric first or not. Honestly, I'm not sure there's a huge difference in whether you wet it or you don't. So I am just going to place that into my container and pour a little bit in on the side. See, yeah, it's very dark. It's very dark. Well, we know it's going to dry a little bit lighter, so let's just go for it. maybe. Okay. And if you don't like how dark it is, you can always run it under the faucet. And it doesn't take long. I mean, it was in there just a few seconds, right? And this is what you get. I will set this aside. And we can look at it, determine if we like it. I'll tell you what, just for purposes of science, as Trisha says, I'm going to go run it under the faucet and bring it back and show you the difference. And if we like it, we'll keep it that way. If we don't like it, we will put it in the solution again, okay? So I will be right back. All right, so are you ready for the reveal? I ran it under and we came out looking like this. So quite a difference. You can probably see here where the water very first hit it. It's much lighter right there. This would be a nice look. I think what we should do, however, is put a little bit of darkness just in areas back on it. So the paper is wanting to roll up on me here. What I'm going to do to give it a little bit of an aged, more of an aged look, I'm going to just take, and some of these are ground very finely. Okay. I'm going to reach in, see if I can get a little bit bigger piece here. My light is starting to fade, so I'm just going to kind of sprinkle bits here and there. Oof, maybe not that much. See if we can get some of that off. Maybe not. Let's start off with that. I don't have it. Let me get my water. If I can find my water. Sorry about that. Okay, don't know what I did with my other water sprayer. It's just, this is what I use when I'm ironing. All right, I'm going to, what do I want to do? Just gonna spray some water into this measuring cup. Get my brush a little bit damp. And I'm gonna start dabbing the areas where I sprinkle the crystals. I'm actually going to spray directly onto here. Try to work those in a little bit. I think if you wanted an even more mottled look to this, as we did with the Rit dye, you could, if you wet the fabric first and then poured the solution over the fabric, you might get more of a variegation in the dye in areas. Quite honestly, I haven't really paid that much attention to what I do when I'm doing it in the past, and it hasn't been until I started making YouTube videos that I thought maybe I need to pay attention to what I'm doing so that I can show others and explain to others. Okay, I'm going to I've got a bit more left on my spoon here. So I'm very sorry if it seems like I don't have exact recipes and exact directions, but I'm going to try to get better with that. I think though that the dyes that I use, well, the coffee and the walnut stain, are very unpredictable dyes. So even if I try to duplicate a piece that I've already done, I'm not sure that it would work exact, because science sometimes is not exact. Okay, what do we want to do from here? I should be having my gloves back on, but I don't. I think just as we added color in to these areas, let's see if we can take some color away from some other areas by spraying it and removing color. Yes, we can. Okay, so you can get, oh, that's totally not in view. I'm sorry. See how I sprayed there and I'm removing some of the color. Okay, I'll do it again over here. Yeah, right up here in the corner maybe. Sprayed some water on, and I'm just taking this to remove some color. Okay, now with this, let's see, quite a bit of color. You can, again, you can let it air dry, you can put it out in the sun, you can put it in the oven, you can use your iron. I feel like there's it's not a brush hair on there. It's just up to you and what suits your needs, how much time you have, how quickly you want to get the fabric from beginning to end. I actually prefer to air dry everything. I just think it gives it a more natural look, but I think in this case I'm going to take it to the ironing board and show you how I dry it with the iron. So let me take you over to the ironing board and see you in a minute. Okay, hopefully you can see this. Let me turn you just a bit. I'll tell you what, before I start, what I don't like about using this method necessarily to dry my dyed pieces. You can see right here, it's already wicked up quite a lot of the dye from the fabric, okay? I have several layers, hopefully enough layers here on my ironing surface so that it doesn't go down to my ironing board cover. And I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of sheets on top of it here. And I have a dry iron. And you will see that you can see the moisture coming through. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think it retains much more of its color when you let it air dry naturally. I mean, look how much moisture and color I've taken off. Also, again, at the risk of repeating myself, if you've watched all of my videos, if you use your iron to do any of this, please make sure that you clean it afterwards so that when you get ready to iron your clothing, you don't have walnut stain or rit dye left on your iron and you ruin your clothing. Also, when you're doing this method, you want to keep the iron moving so we don't catch anything on fire. So you see it has really lightened up considerably. You can see it has gone through both of those sheets of paper. I think what I will do, and this isn't even all the way dry. I like this, but I don't like it. I want it to be, I want it to look more, if this were all the way dry, it would all pretty much look like that. And I want it to look more hand dyed. So I'll go ahead and dry it all the way, and then we may do some other things to it. That is the nice thing about doing this, is that if you don't like it, if you don't like the way it turned out, there's always something more you can do to it. It's pretty much dry, except for right up in this corner. Okay. Let me take you back over maybe in a little bit better light, and I'll show you the outcome. Okay, so here we are back over, hopefully in a little bit better lighting. I don't know, what do you guys think we should do? I could very happily stitch a piece on this, but I wish it had a little bit more texture. And I don't know. Decisions. I think, here I go without the gloves again. I think we're going to play a little bit more and see what happens. So I'm just going to take tiny amounts again. Or a big chunk like that one. you over and move you over. Okay, so let's see if we take, I just have water in this little mister bottle. I'll take you and move you over here. Didn't really want to saturate the fabric too much. Let's see if I can scoop. Nope, not really. Okay, not liking that. See how we can get out of this. Or let's just take and dip it into the actual walnut stain and brush over it. And paint with it. And we know that apart from these really dark spots where I just drop the crystals themselves, we know that this will dry lighter than what it looks right now, overall. I'm going to leave this light spot right here because I really like that. Okay. Now remember when we took the water and we absorbed some of the, we're just going to do that with a plain paper towel, hoping that that will give us the look that we want. Okay? I think we will just want to get a little bit more down on this end. Actually, down on this end, there's a little gray spot that the pearl gray splashed out and got one little dot down on this end, but it won't hurt the overall look to it because that will be either in a frame or cut off. Okay, so I think what we will do here, I mean, I've taken quite a bit off, which kind of seems counterproductive because I just put it back on. But that's the fun. You just play with it and see what happens. I think I'm going to let this dry naturally like I wanted to the first time around and see what happens. And we'll go from there. Okay? Oh, well, let me move this a little bit out of the way. Let me close this up before I spill. Also, again, if this is the first time you're watching my dyeing tutorial, you won't have heard this before. You can put these leftover dye in the refrigerator and keep it safely for, I would say, about a week and reuse it. Beyond a week, I have no guarantees. You'll probably open it up and it will be moldy. So just keep that in mind when you're mixing dye. You know, you can keep it and reuse it. Okay, so I want to show you where we are in the process of, let me pull this paper up, with the Pearl Gray. I moved it out onto my patio and I'm quite surprised at some differences here. This is the linen. Oh, and here's another tip for drying, is to use the old plastic hangers that you get like at Target with your clothes or wherever with your clothes. This is the results with the linen. It's a 25 count linen so far. It's still damp. It's not fully saturated, but it's a ways away from drying. Okay. Now, this was the surprise to me. This is the linen. I mean the Aida. Look at those huge spots. Okay. Look at I mean, that is quite a difference. And you guys saw what I did. Basically the same thing to each one. But the Aida absorbs more of the dye, I feel, than the linen. Okay, so I'm going to put these back out on my patio to hopefully finish drying, and we'll be back. All right, guys, change of plans. I got to looking at this Aida and it scared me, and it still scares me. But I ended up rinsing it, and I may rinse it a little bit more because this is completely not the look that I am going for, and I'm really surprised. Let me grab, just to have a look at that for a moment. I mean, it's completely not. Now, it doesn't have the tan in it yet, and that will change the color quite a bit. But I don't want this dark of spots. And my goal here with this piece was to kind of make it look like a tombstone, like the granite of a tombstone, or the kind of the color of a aged concrete. So what I'm gonna do, I may rinse it a little bit more. I rinsed the Aida as well, or the linen as well. I do like the way this one looks, how the dye spread out more. I think that this dye spread in a weird pattern. Maybe at the end I will end up loving it. Right now, not so much. But this one, both sides of this one look, to me, look fantastic so far, of the linen. Okay, but what I'm gonna do is I'm going to throw it in the dryer with an old towel and see what happens. At that point, we will re-wet it and add some tan grit dye to it. Okay, so let me go take care of that and I'll be back. And we're back. Okay, so the 36 count white linen that's been walnut stained has dried, and I have pressed it. Let me see if I can put this so you can get. This is what one side looks like, and I'm so sorry for the shadows. It's starting to turn into evening here, and I just want to try to get these finished in one day. That is one side. I'll flip it over and show you the other side. Both sides are nice, I think, and very stitchable. All right. I thought I would show you. This is the piece that I did in Stitch Mania where I had walnut stained it, and I walnut stained it I think before I stitched on this one. What was it after? I might have done it after and then put the snowflakes in after, because you can see the snowflakes are still very light colored. So that was kind of the look we were going for. This is a little more extreme, I feel. You can keep adding layer upon layer and get, you know, nice dark spots like this. All you do is keep dabbing it on, spraying it on, whatever method you're using to get the walnut ink onto the fabric in different spots. And yeah, this side shows a little bit more of the primitive bits of it, but I would call this a success, minus the drip of pearl gray on here. I would call this a success, and I would be happy to stitch on this. Okay, so we'll set that aside and call that done. The pearl gray, Aida, and linen, we still have a couple more steps to go through, but I got them out of the dryer, I pressed them. I think this is really, when I hold it up like this, you can see the various spots far more on camera than you can in person. I would be happy to stitch something on this as is, I think. Let me show the other side. Is a nice kind of, got a lot of mottling in it. But we aren't finished with this. We still have to do the tan grit dye on that. The Aida, however, even though I rinsed it out, I'm still like, this is scary to me. This side especially is very scary. This side is not quite as bad, and I think I'm going to count this as the front of it. But I don't know. I suppose if you have the right pattern to put on this as is, it might be good. But I'm just so surprised at the difference in how differently the Aida took the dye than the linen. So the next step is to add some tan. And I'm not going to mix the tan on camera. I mixed tan in my video from yesterday, and I'm just going to use that. But you mix it in the same method as I did the pearl gray. You heat the water, you add some, decide if it's dark enough. If it's not, add some more. If it's too dark, add more water, that kind of thing. So let me get the tan dye and everything I need to use with that, and I'll be right back. Ready for some more dyeing? Okay, I think because we know that the linen doesn't absorb the color as concentrated as the Aida, I'm going to work on the linen first and then go to the Aida. So what I have here, I just poured some tan dye into my container. I have a scrunched up paper towel, dip it into that, and use that to just start dabbing around, kind of around the places that I originally put the more concentrated pearl gray. And this is a little bit time consuming. It's a little fiddly, but you just dab it on. And when I did the original, of course it was a much smaller piece, but I would do this, I would let it dry, I would come back, you know, in an hour or so, and I would dab some more on. And I did that several times throughout the day until I was happy with how it looked. Okay, so that's our first go around. I'm sorry if that part is off camera, but these pieces, I wanted to make these much larger pieces. Okay, so that's the first go around on the linen. So let's start playing with the Aida. I don't know what possessed me to use a paper towel the first time, other than I had it over at my kitchen sink, the paper towels were handy, and I just grabbed one and started dipping and dabbing. While I'm doing this, you guys, I started last night watching a new show on Netflix that my daughter recommended, and my children are constantly recommending programs for me to watch. And some of them I like and I continue to watch, and others it's like, not so much. But this one I am just like completely hooked on, and I think I watched 4 episodes last night. And I didn't want to stop, but I had to go to bed. But it's called Stranger Things. It's a Netflix original. And if you like kind of like it's set in the 1980s, okay? And I wasn't a 1980s child, I was a 1980s young adult. So it has some great 1980s music in it. And so that appealed to me, and it has a kind of an X-Files feel to it, kind of an X-Files feel, a Stand By Me feel, an E.T. feel, all wrapped up in one. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely check it out. Okay, can you see how the tan or the brown, the warm tone is changing this up already? The other show that I've been watching on Netflix, which I didn't watch it when it first came out back in the day, and I have lots of seasons to catch up on, but I've been watching West Wing for some reason that seemed to interest me all of a sudden. Okay, let's just use up the rest of what's in here. Try to tone down some of those big dark splotches. Try to tone down that red spot that's on there that frustrates me that I didn't get that mixed properly. Okay, so I think we will call that good for now. Gonna let that dry and figure out what I'm gonna have for my supper, and I'll be back when this is dried for the next step. Stay tuned. Hello again. So a bit of time has passed. These are almost dry from where we dabbed the tan around the dark spots. The next step, what I did is I took my pearl gray bath and I added some of the tan dye to it. Probably, let me see if you can see there, probably like maybe a 60-40 ratio, with the 60 being the pearl gray and the 40 being the tan. Because if you, I mean, whoa, in good lighting, this has more of a gray tint to it than a brown. So hopefully the results will be the same with these two pieces. I'm still not overly excited about this piece. I don't know, not loving it. May change my mind, but right now, not loving it. I am, however, loving the linen. I really am liking the way the linen is turning out, but we'll see. The Aida may surprise me. So what I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to kind of wad up each piece, and we're going to put them in the bath just like we did originally in the pearl gray, and dip it down in there and see what happens. And just move it around. And hope for the best. Might open some parts out. Squeeze it and work that dye into the fibers. Let's open this out and see. I don't know. Do the same for the Aida. And remember, okay, it's going to look really dark right now. It should dry lighter than what it looks. Move that over. Try not to spill. You can see we still have some light spots there. I'm just gonna leave that. what the aida reveals. I don't know, it may have surprised me here. Let's see what the other side looks like. It looks pretty dark, but I think any type of Halloween piece would look great on these. The aida is really surprising me so far. Let's see what happens when it dries. I think I might take okay. Well, let's see what this side looks like. I'm liking that side too. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry. Again, that's what takes the longest, is the drying part. And if it's nighttime now, I don't want to put it outside. I'm just gonna let it air dry and see what happens, and we'll come back whenever it's dry. All right, see you soon. All right, so we are approaching midnight on the 28th, but I wanted to just go ahead and get this finished for you guys. I'm very pleasantly surprised, and I hope you guys will be too. Things didn't turn out quite the way I had hoped. I was not able to completely duplicate this. I will show you the linen first. Some strange things happened, but here we are. And that's not, okay, the light's showing behind it. Let's put this behind it. I think it turned out nice. I think it would make a lovely piece for any Halloween design. But if you hold this up next to it, it's completely not the same color. So when I pulled the linen out, I thought, oh my, okay, maybe the 60-40, the 60 should have been the tan and the 40 should have been the gray. Because on the linen, the gray is prominent. All right, and before I show you the aida, I want to show you the weird things that showed up, and I have no idea where they came from. We have a lot of little specks going on, but you know what? If the intention is to use this for something kind of fall or Halloween-y style, I like that. If it was, if you want this for a mirror or something like that, I'm not sure you would want that look. But then again, mirrors aren't prim. I'll see if I'll show you this is one side, and on this one I think both sides are fairly similar, and this is the other side. It has a little bit lighter spots on it. So I think either side would be nice to stitch on. So then when I pulled the aida out, this is what showed up. Okay, this would be what I would consider this side to stitch on, the right side. This one still has quite a bit of the dark areas, but if I hold this up, especially down in the lower half or upper half, whichever way you look at it, and this lighting, I apologize, this lighting is not that great. You can see quite a bit of the brown tones coming through. So the Aida compared to the linen, here I will try to do this. I think they look quite a bit different. So it's remarkable to me that they dye so differently. However, the Aida also got some of these weird, freaky spots. Now that I think about it, I wonder, because basically both the tan and the pearl gray sat for a little while, all day, and I didn't mix them up before I submerged these in, you know, before I mix the two together and submerge these in it. That might be, it might have separated to a certain degree, so that might be where those came from. But I'm okay with that. To me, for what I would have in mind for this fabric, to stitch on this fabric, it works fine. So that's going to conclude my dyeing fun for this month, probably for a little while. I want to focus on stitching and not so much dyeing. But as you may suspect, you know, it's 11:47 p.m. Let's just make this a triple play. If you would like one of these pieces of fabric, and I would give you your choice of the linen or the Aida, and I don't have measurements. I will take measurements and I will put them in the description below. I'm gonna give a piece away. Might as well, like I said, we might as well make it a triple play. And of course, the same rules apply as always. You have to be a subscriber. If you're under 18, you need your parents' permission. I will ship worldwide. If you're interested, leave a comment below saying that you're interested, and we'll just wait until you win, and at that point, you can tell me which one you would prefer, linen or Aida. And same thing, I'm going to go ahead and leave this open until midnight Central Standard Time on August 7th. I will do the draw on August 8th. And if you've entered on my other two, you can enter on this one. And if you win all three, then you are one lucky person and you need to play the lottery. But I think that's it for now. Thank you. If you have sat through all three of my videos, you're crazy, but I love you. I know. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting, and I hope this was helpful. I just, like I said earlier, it's unpredictable, and the Aida, you know, proved me wrong. I was so not liking the Aida before, and it turned out pretty good, I think, compared to what it was looking like prior to the final dip in the dye. I never imagined that they would be this different. I thought there would be some subtle differences, but not this different. So anyway, I'm rambling now. Again, thank you for watching, and I will be back in a few days for my month-end wrap-up. All right. Have a happy stitchy time.